It's a great pleasure to invite all of you to this event, which is a roundtable on corporate governance. May I present to you Mr. Vikas Deshmukh.
The question always comes up is, why is corporate governance of relevance to all of us? Because corporate governance, companies, it's a problem will be inside the company. At the most, the poor shareholders will suffer, the company will go bankrupt, etc., etc. But that's not true. Corporate governance affects all of us. If you think of how a simple problem with one of the microfinance companies created a problem for the entire microfinance industry and the people who had to get those loans. So a corporate governance problem in a company or in an industry can affect all of us. As the companies have been growing, they've been becoming multinational companies, the economic power that these companies wield has been growing. And Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation spends more on healthcare than the WHO. So this is the reality of life. The economic power is becoming very strong, and therefore it is becoming very important that we look at corporate governance more in depth. Now, just to quote Dr. Joseph Stiglitz, a noted Nobel Prize-winning economist, in an unfettered capitalistic economy, private incentives are often misaligned with the social costs and benefits. And that's one of the reasons why I really need to look at corporate governance and how the alignment between the corporates and the society will happen. And that's what this paper is going to be all about. And therefore, we are very happy that the Honorable Minister has decided to introduce this companies bill. And it's a landmark companies bill. If all of you who have gone through this bill will realize that it is thinking of something completely out of the box. And that's where we are very happy that we can add something to the bill as an unfinished agenda. For the purpose of this paper, we have taken good corporate governance in this particular frame, which is encourages efficient use of resources, requires accountability for stewardship of those resources, ensures a balance between economic and societal goals, and very importantly, good corporate governance leads to sustainable corporate growth. Now, as I said, we are completing the unfinished agenda. We are really talking about stakeholders and not shareholders, because corporate governance has very often been understood as dealing with the shareholders. We have, in this paper, the way it's structured, we are starting with the space station view. From a space station, you see the whole world. That's not just one country or one city. And we have covered 8 facets: board, ESOPs, insider trading, risk, whistleblower, information transparency, innovation, social audit. And then we have come out with something which we believe something we should have probably been patenting, which is the Corporate Governance Index. And what we provide in this paper eventually provides the tools for management of change. The proposals we have in this paper are easily implementable. There was a survey done a few years back where 80%, the board members in India were surveyed, and 80% of them felt that good corporate governance can be achieved through a principle-based combination of principle-based standards and moderate regulations. All these proposals we have are good to take actions. Then the other thing we have done in this paper is to elevate the spotlight. And the whole idea here is that MCA, we are recommending to MCA that MCA should set up the Corporate Governance Advisory Board, which becomes the channel between MCA and all the stakeholders. The other thing we have suggested is a 5-year review. And we do believe that having a 15-year sunset clause for each of these proposals automatically is going to force a very, very strong review. We'll then decide whether this particular thing is going to shine on or is going to fade away. Board is a key slice of the organizational pyramid. One of the things that is happening is there is an unstoppable globalization of corporate world. And on the other end, we have intense localization of the political world. In our proposals, just as it has been done in the company's bill, the independent director is a linchpin to all the corporate governance issues. Of course, the independent directors are doing a lot of balancing act. On the compensation front, we do believe that the boards and independent directors have a very tough task in 2 areas. One is to give a long-term focus to the compensation. And the other one, which is a big problem, not very often noticed, is the internal disparity. And one of the things that caused a big bump in the CEO compensation was the employee stock option plans. It's an innovation which has had a very good innovation, but it has gone awry. If I can just quote Judith Samuelson, the founder of the Aspen Institute in Colorado, she said as a result of these stock options, the focus of the management was not on planning for long term, but making sure that the stock prices were increasing on the date of they were exercising their options. Southern Methodist University did another study, which was interesting because you are aware of the U.S. government had to bail out a lot of financial companies in 2008-2009. And they found out that where the companies where the CEOs had the highest number of options with them, those are the companies which took the largest bailout money. So they needed larger support from the government and the tax holders when they had a lot of options. To us, India has got one big problem which does not exist in any other country in the world, barring very few small ones. Now this problem is of discounted pricing. Insider trading is one of the, I would call it a congenital problem. The day the public stock trading started, I think insider trading must have started. Because there is always going to be people with privileged information, and if they want to do the trade on that, it becomes illegal insider trading. I would only say that what we have proposed here in our proposals is that the coverage we have increased beyond the coverage in the Companies Act today. We have also talked of the key employees, and the key employees definition we have included people who hold a large number of shares of the company. And the other thing we have talked about is transparency and transparent disclosure. As soon as an insider trades, it should come up on the website so that everybody is aware, whoever wants to invest is aware of what is the insiders are trading, selling, buying, whatever. And of course, we have talked of graded penalties for larger companies, a bigger sort of set of penalties. Risk management is an area which very often people ask a question, why is risk management got anything to do with corporate governance? But risk management, the breakdown of risk management is really what led to the global breakdown of in 2008. And also, very interesting phenomena, which I was very surprised to read that the people who were the senior managers in the financial world in Wall Street had come out of their school at a time when finance was not such an attractive profession. Today, people who are coming out, becoming MBAs, going to finance are some of the best performers. So we had a situation where the manager didn't know as much as his employee knew. And as a result of that, risk management becomes one of the biggest problems. So we do believe that this is something we need to address because India has got the boom syndrome problem. When there's a tremendous growth, risks tend to get covered. Now, for identifying and mitigating risk, we have suggested some proposal, but one of the key risk areas I would like to concentrate on is IT risk. And the social media being used for work is causing another problem because the social media, my personal opinion, they are very arrogantly intrusive because they intrude into your data, your information, your privacy, mostly without telling you. And on disaster planning, I think our record has been pretty spotty in India. But we do need to have a clear disaster planning process within the organizations. Whistleblower is another area where I think we are making a lot of progress, but now we are not quite there because if you really compare India, and I think it's a very tragic comparison which I'm going to give you. So we do hope that the law that is inching through the parliament process will come in and do something strong. But we also feel that in the meantime, the corporates don't have to wait. Companies can start their internal whistleblower process, but make sure that confidentiality, protection, and speed are always there. On information transparency, I'm just going to very briefly say this, that it's a basic pillar of governance. And that way, this is one area where government has made a lot of progress. But there's one issue that comes up always inside a company. There's a familiarity with opacity, the way the management styles have been. And there's an apprehension with transparency. I think once we can climb that, go over that barrier, we'll see a lot more transparency within all our stakeholders. On innovation ecosystem, I think there are a number of other members who want to add something, so I'm just going to briefly run through it. But we are not talking of only R&D of products. Here we are talking of an omnipresent innovation. It's an innovation culture within the company, whether it's products, services, business models, processes. And I still remember in my early IBM days, one of the basic beliefs was, what I'm doing today can always, what I'm doing today can always be done in a better way tomorrow. And if we can get that kind of a thinking amongst everybody in the company, I think this innovation ecosystem, innovation culture just gets formed. One of the things which is kind of in a sunrise situation in India is social audit. People always feel that profit maximization is my business, societal well-being is somebody else's business, and it is not an or. Actually, taking care of societal well-being leads to better business results. What the social audit is really about the proactive evaluation of your stakeholder inclusive management. And proactive is very important because a lot of companies do try to do social audits when they run into trouble. And there's a process we have suggested in the paper. Now I'll come to what we consider our best suggestion or the most important out of the box suggestion, which is a corporate governance index. Because we do feel that there is a proliferation of the rating agencies around the world which rate corporate governance of a company. So what we have proposed here is, I think, like same kind of breakthrough like what happened between Microsoft and the open systems. We are providing a self-evaluation tool which any company can use with a little support from some professionals. But what it really does is it gives a company a chance to know where are we on corporate governance. How do we improve from where we are to where we want to be? And because it is a simple and transparent tool, we believe that even the boards can manage it with a little professional help. There is a customized benchmarking which is also available in the sense that some companies may not really have those factors as important for them, because as you'll see next time, there are 10 factors. In those 10 factors, we have tried to cover all aspects of corporate governance. And then as far as applying the CG index is concerned, there's a very quick steps. One is you have to get the board commitment. The fact-finding and assessment can happen with independent agency or internally if one has that confidence level in the internal fact-finding. The board review, and then the benchmarking for the next cycle. And now, for the most important part, this is nice to say something here, nice to get all of you to agree, but then there is what next? How does it be converted into actions and results? So to take care of that part, we have our most seasoned member who's been on all sides of this issue, both on the bureaucracy, on the industry, and on PIC side.
I came out with the idea in my ministry that, I would like to have a national corporate governance policy. The new idea which you have given today is we should also have an innovative committee in the whole corporate governance policy. As emerging markets speak, Indian players in several sectors will be exposed to more intense competition. Cost, quality, innovation, and pricing will hold the key to future success. Social issues such as employment, inclusive growth, climate change have taken on unprecedented financial implications. A more integrated and coordinated capital market of large investors and stakeholders groups have emerged as a new source of pressure on companies. According to an earlier estimate, 95% of the listed companies and almost 100% of the 42 million unlisted companies in India are family-owned business. So this is where, the corporate governance plays an important role. Since the demarcation of ownership and management is the ownership-based companies is not specifically drawn, corporate governance assumes greater significance. We need to address them. We need to work on them. Maybe that, that is how I found that, we need to have a policy. Collapse of financial markets in 2008 has invited renewed questions about governance. The world is getting better, but not fast enough and not for everyone. Creative capitalism is a system where incentives for both profit and recognition motivate both self-interest and caring for others. Corporations should allow top innovators to spend part of their time on issues facing people too poor to be consumers. But there is a big market available, which we need to, definitely deploy and prepare. This takes the brain power that makes life better for the richest and dedicates it to improving the lives of everyone else. In areas where the government is weaker, creative capitalists can be most effective by fully filling in for the missing state. What America has done in recent years was to remove funding for innovation from private labs to universities. But we are very poor in that. I recall that the term corporate governance was used more in the form of legalistic word or from academic point of view prior to 1991. After 1991, we adopted a model of LPG. That is what, when I meant that, LPG. We need to more that. Merely, the becoming captive of the government, the corporate bodies, and looking to them for a leadership, for the pioneer role. I think it's not a correct thinking. The growth of 9% will be achieved when governance becomes the engines of growth, which is not possible unless we are in a position to compete globally and we have an export surplus to reduce our dependency on imported goods. Good corporate governance is essentially about effective and responsible leadership, which calls for integrity, transparency, and accountability. What are the ingredients of good governance? Principles-based, not rule-based. Practice, not rhetoric. Values clearly set out and practiced in everyday decision-making. Transparency in all that enterprise does. Maintaining the reputation is one of the highest priorities. A board that demands accountability from CEO and executive leadership team. We have to look beyond box ticking and see that good governance must add value in a corporation. Risk assessment and risk management is essential to minimize exposure to large financial business threats. Internal mechanism to correct governance deviation, namely routine compliance, quality and financial audits. Process of value creation is a complex one involving many facets. Corporate governance is a two-sided coin and depends on the ability of the board and management to work together on a common vision and strategy. Trust is fragile in nature, and by definition, you have already said, yes, there is a trust deficit. We are surplus in everything else, but we have public, trust deficit. That we need to bridge. A well-implemented compliance and ethics program does not spring from void ex nihilo. It requires a strong leader to engage others in the organization. Corporate sustainability and good governance are intrinsically, they are twinned together, and we need to address them. As countries brace up to face the developmental challenges, innovation and scientific development will prove to be the cornerstone what will impact sustainability in the coming years. In Ethiopia alone, it comes to around $2 billion in recent years, dollars. It is shockingly true that not even 6% of our food products produced have been processed or any value added. This is the pity. How do you 60% of our economy depends upon the agriculture, rural area, and only 6% value is added. How do you take this? With all making all progress everywhere, if you don't do this, we have no future at all. This country will have no future. We have plenty of scope, but we are constrained. That is, I must say, constrained by our own mindset, I must add, not by anything else. To mobilize the capital market of our own, we don't have it as on today. Can you imagine 300 of the districts are the most backward districts? Address the problem. It is good for the business. Such a big expansion of the corporate world can take place in this country. They are the virgin lands for investment. Charity is important and necessary, but is only source. We must move from charitable care to developmental assistance. Consequently, we should focus on empowerment and development assistance. Public policy and also the corporate policy governance should work together. This is the ultimately solution, and we should develop that kind of a content. By 2020, we need to, build that roadmap, and capacity building is very important. Thank you very much.